much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
The Honorable Senator Olekina Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I rise to support this motion by the distinguished Senator Mofaya. Mr. Speaker, the issue of food security is something which is very important, that I was hoping that all delegations, all 47 delegations would be here to discuss it in a very sober and progressive way. Mr. Speaker, we know the problem and we know the solutions. But because we are greedy and because we don't care to think about future generations, we don't give a hoot in hell. Mr. Speaker, I think it's about time that when a motion like this comes before this House, we now start looking at the resolutions which are being sought here. When we talk about food security, every county in this country must understand its weather patterns. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was talking to some of my workers and I was suggesting that we should start planting maize now. And most of them say, no. Even if the rains are here, we don't know about the sun when it comes to January. If my workers, who most of them do not have the education that a lot of people in the policy department have, can be able to understand the weather patterns, why can these so-called experts understand it better? Mr. Speaker, this issue of food security is something that we now, as a country, unless we are prepared to starve to death, and you know, sometimes I wonder, is it because that we can afford to dress very nicely, wear expensive suits, drive fancy cars, that we don't care about the people in Turkana, that we don't care about the millions of people in this country who are currently starving? When you read from a motion like this, that over 950,000 pregnant mothers are now facing malnutrition, what do you think about the future of this country? As a country, Mr. Speaker, it is about time that we now start really asking questions and moving forward to be able to see solutions and to be able to follow the progress of these solutions coming in. Right now, every county government should be thinking about water reserves so that if all these rains come, and you know, I did something other people will consider it very crazy. Recently, there was a path that goes through, the side of the road where I live. And I said, with these rains coming in, my dams are empty. So you know what I did? I went and I brought a lot of stones. I barricaded the place. The water came in, and I diverted the water into 3 of my dams. So tomorrow in January, when the rains don't come, I can still use that water to be able to irrigate my corn. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to be innovative. I do not subscribe to the school of thought that says that we must genetically modify the food for us to be able to survive in this country. I share that my views on GMO are advised by the research which is out there. I don't want our kids to be born, and I think we will be adjourning the House in the next 3 minutes to discuss that issue. I don't want future kids to be born with 6 fingers just because we do not. I don't want a situation where a country, a developing nation, because I still consider Kenya, even if Kenya is the largest economy in East and Central Africa, with a GDP of $110 billion, most of us who live in the rural areas are still surviving with a $1 a day. If the normal people, if they don't work in a day, they starve. So I think now, with this motion that has been proposed by the distinguished Senator Mofaya, right now, the Committee of Agriculture in this House should follow up and ensure that since agriculture is devolved, very little money should be left in Nairobi, in the capital. The money which should be left, not Nairobi County, so that I don't get in trouble with my good brothers from Senator from Nairobi, but from the national government. Once we devolve, let's look at each and every county. When you go to a county like Kajiado, Narok, you go to Samburu, you go to the north, What we need to be thinking about is a government offtake program that guarantees that farmers, when they have their cows, they can still sell their cows at a minimum of 50,000 Kenya shillings. And that the technology is there. If my good brother, and I know I have 30 seconds, my good brother, Senator from Nyeri, can sit down and discuss with me about technology to be able to preserve meat, we can discuss that. Because you're already harvesting it, you're already slaughtering the cow. But if you're coming to discuss with me a technology where we alter the genetics of human beings, because to a greater extent, when you alter the genetics of food, when you modify the genetics of food, you're modifying it. You're modifying the genetics of human being. In most cases, Mr. Speaker, and I want to qualify my statement there, a lot of people suffer from secondary smoking. If you sit in a place where people are smoking every day, if you sleep in a room that everybody is smoking every day, and I'm sure, Doctor, the majority whip will agree with me, you will have secondary smoking. You know, you're not the one primarily smoking, but if you sleep in a room that someone has been smoking on a daily basis, you will end up suffering, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know the time is up and it's time for us to adjourn, but I wish that I can, because this is a matter which is continuing, the remaining minutes I can be able to have them later.
That is noted, Senator Olekina Ledama. I am also equally aware that there are a good number of honorable senators in the queue. Senator Esther is on the queue, Okoiti, Nyamu, Tobiko, Pesi. We will resume this motion tomorrow, and you will be given priority so that you contribute to it. We have Senator Olekina, I am informed that you will have 14 minutes tomorrow to debate on this particular motion. Thank you, honorable members. And members, you are aware that it is now 5:30. There was an appointed time by the Honorable Speaker to discuss the motion that had been sought by the Honorable Senator Madzayo, and I would like to request you to proceed and move your motion. It's now 5:30. Okay.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of national importance, namely the decision by the government to authorize the cultivation and importation of banned genetically modified organism foods. Mr. Speaker, the Biosafety Act of 2009 was passed into law by the Kenyan Parliament in December 2008. It received the presidential assent on the 12th of December 2009. Mr. Speaker, only Parliament holds the supreme legislative power to amend or alter the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the decision to lift the ban on GMO and the importation is a total betrayal to our country. We have reasons to believe that the authorization of the 10 million bags of genetically modified maize is a push from the foreign nations and their multinational companies. We call upon the President to immediately reverse the decision on the GMO until Parliament and Kenyans have full knowledge on this. Mr. Speaker, sir, the churches have spoken. The mosques have spoken. The members of parliament have spoken. Even the ministers in our government have spoken. And indeed, it's time now that the president listened. Mr. Speaker, for the last 10 years, there has been no need to import or allow open cultivation of genetically modified organisms, food, as the country has been able to make do without GMOs. Our farmers have continued to produce the bulk of Kenya's maize supply, and the deficit of an average of 10 million bags per year has been supplemented through trade with our neighboring countries, mainly Tanzania and Uganda, that are GMO-free. Mr. Speaker, the reasons why we say no to GMOs is the lack of public participation. You will note that, Mr. Speaker, that the decision was reached without public consultation, and the views of the public were not considered in the decision to lift the ban, which curtails the freedom of Kenyans to choose what they want to eat or what they don't want to eat. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans are not aware on the purported research or report of the task force, which was used to arrive at this decision, which stands in violation of the provisions of the right to access to information. When was this task force formed? When was it gazetted? And who chaired it? And who were the members? Mr. Speaker, there have been researches on GMOs.
What is your
which have
intervention,
shown increased resistance to antibiotics.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the minority knows very well that the standing orders are against a member moving a motion by reading a document. Could he choose between reading the document or passing out as handouts? Mr. Speaker, he's a very experienced man, a lawyer of many years standing, a justice, and is reading to us. Could you share with us that document so that when we are responding, we are also on the same page?
Senator Halwale, I noticed that the Honorable Senator Mazayo had actually finished reading the statement, and his motion, and he was actually responding, he was not reading, if I could confirm what I saw. But go ahead, Senator, so that you conclude on commenting on your motion.
Oh, my time is also taken care of in this interruption. Mr. Speaker, agriculture, as we are aware, in this country, is the mainstay of more than 60% of the Kenyans. The Speaker, Kenyans right now eat ugali. And it's going to be extremely dangerous, Mr. Speaker, if ugali now will be mixed with something else, that Kenyans themselves will find themselves in such a difficult situation. In the sense that, Mr. Speaker, you'll notice that particularly on issues of diseases, there is going to be a lot of resistance on antibiotics. Similarly, there is possible links to cancer and reproductive malnutrition. Mr. Speaker, our social economic concerns on this are based on the fact that Kenyans rely on one particular foodstuff, which is maize. And I think I went to my brother, Senator Khalwale's house in Kakamega one time, and we ate a lot of ugali and chicken. Now I'm wondering if this ugali which were given by Senator Khalwale was with GMO, then I don't know whether some of us would have been men. He's a bullfighter and a man also, so I believe. So, Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to say we have what we call the National Biosafety Authority, which is there to regulate GMOs. This authority, which is the body vested with this kind of responsibility, it lacks the scientific facilities to either tell whether these are the seeds are safe or not safe. So all we are saying is that we need full disclosure on this. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude and say that the people of Kenya would like to have a discussion on this. And we want to call upon the government to reinstate that ban, which will include the public participation, and also I want to emphasize that we have very capable institutions in this country which could also have been consulted or can be roped in, and that is Kenyatta University of Agriculture. We have Jack Watt. We have Egerton College. We have the University of Nairobi College of Agriculture and Veterinary Science, the Kenya Seed Company, who have for a long time, there have been bodies that have the capacity, and we know them, and they can tell the Kenyans exactly what is the issue with these GMOs. Mr. Speaker, all I would like to say or emphasize is that Kenyans would like to have full disclosures and full participation on the discussion with regards to GMOs. Otherwise, GMOs will render this country to have infertility, to have a lot of scientific issues that I think would be good for the human body. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to call my brother, Ledama Olekina, to second.
Senator Ledama Olekina, you've got 5 minutes to second and discuss this motion. Yes. Yes.
We need to change the standing orders, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll try to be very brief and to the point. And I want Kenyans out there to listen to me. I want them to give me an ear. Because this afternoon, I'm here to plead with Kenyans not to allow the importations of GMO into this country. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is the largest economy in East and Central Africa, with a GDP of 110 billion. Kenya currently relies on neighboring countries to be able to supply products, buy products from them. We have so many counties, Mr. Speaker, which borders Uganda, and you know there's a lot of crops that come from Uganda, and subsequently there's a lot of products that leave Kenya to go to Uganda. Tanzania is equally the same. Mr. Speaker, if you go to London today and you open a fridge, you will find all vegetables coming from Kenya. Not only horticulture, but you will find asparagus, you will find broccoli, a lot of broccolis coming from Kiambu, coming from Nandi. You will also find what they call mishiri, or French beans, coming from Narok, Nyandarua County. Mr. Speaker, whenever we think about an action, one of the things that I'd like even the authorities in Kenya to think about is what is referred to as unintended consequences. By allowing GMO to come into this country, we're not only exposing our population into what has already been laid out there as being the dangers of GMO, and I'll name them. Number one, toxicity. Number two, allergic reactions. Number three, antibiotic resistance. Number four, immune suppression. Number five, loss of nutrition. Mr. Speaker, I'm holding a piece of corn here, maize, that we all enjoy. And we eat it on a daily basis. And it is very sweet, Mr. Speaker. All of us, Mr. Speaker, went on a short break and enjoyed a piece of corn. When we are told that the food which is brought into this country will not be nutritious, how are we going to be able to survive?
Point of order, Senator Karungu Thangwa.
Mr. Speaker, is the senator in order to eat in Parliament? Mr. Speaker, to eat food in the chamber, Mr. Speaker.
Thangwa, yes, Honorable Senator Olekina, you are a senior member of this House, and I am aware that the Speaker has previously ruled that members are barred from having food, not water. Drinking is water, food in the chamber. Could you kindly refrain from doing the same as you proceed to contribute to the motion?
Mr. Speaker, the point is already made. I am speaking to Kenyans out there, and I don't know, you need to give me some more time because my time was interrupted. You know, when we're here, Mr. Speaker, the rules are set by this House, but when something is so emotive, and when you want people to be able to understand why some of us are completely against modifying genetics, is because you want to be able to demystify for people out there to understand clearly what it is that you mean for them. Mr. Speaker, if you take a piece of corn, which the genetics have already been modified. In the US, Mr. Speaker, and I lived in the US for 20 years, it's my second home. Most of the corn there is only fed to animals. It is not fed to human beings. The nutritional value is zero. So, Mr. Speaker, I know we have a very short time to be able to plead to Kenyans. I know I have maybe 2 minutes left for me to be able to end. But
You've got 1 minute. I'm giving you 1 minute so that you conclude. Thank you.
The light is what I saw, Mr. Speaker. I want to call upon Kenyans out there that this is a time that you now start thinking about future generations. We are a country that today, some of us, like me, believe that we are living now in a kleptocracy where the people who rule this country do not care. You've seen sentiments being made by former members of parliament. In fact, today, this was very interesting. Alfred Keter last time told us that William Ruto has 500,000 acres of land in Congo, and that he's with corn, GMO. And just today we saw sheep docking. Today the reality of this thing is going to hit so hard. Farmers in Kakamega will not be able to enjoy their ugali. Mr. Speaker, I wish I would have taken ugali and really squeezed it like this. And you make ugali made out of GMO, it will be like porridge. They will no longer have bullfighters. So the farmers of Rift Valley, today you are going to the streets. You are being coerced. You are being forced to sell all your maize before this country is dumped with a lot of maize, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask you, if you care about future generation and you care about yourself, say no to GMO. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Honorable Senators, I now put the question that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of national importance, namely the decision by the government to authorize the cultivation and importation of banned genetically modified organism, that is GMO foods. Honorable members, I now open up the contribution, and each senator is to utilize 5 minutes to discuss on this particular matter. The Honorable Senator Boni Halwale, Kakamega.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the debate on the floor this afternoon requires that we demonstrate leadership not to cause panic in the countryside amongst the populace. It is true that the President has expressed himself on the issue of GMO, and therefore those who want to play politics by making him look bad should keep the populace away from it. I speak with maximum authority, honorable members, because I'm not only a scientist, but I am specifically trained in medical science. Scientists are ethical people, and the common denominator, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, of science, research, and technology in this area, Mr. Speaker, is that only desirable strains are expressed agriculturally out of research that are harmless to the people. That is the common denominator. And the GMO that is in question, leader of the minority, I beg you, let's not make people panic. The GMO that is in question is based on the following things, that research. That when you're growing maize, you have a challenge of the pests, you've got to fix them. Then the herbs that grow along with the maize, you fix them. Then you have the pesticides and the herbicides that you use. So when scientists are doing this research, they make sure that the product that comes out is resistant to pests and resistant to herbicides. And that's exactly what the GMO has done. It has brought out a strain that is resistant to pests and herbicides. That's all. And I swear, you can do your reading. There is nowhere in the world, not one place, where ill effects of GMO have been reported in any population anywhere in the world.
What's your point of order, Senator Olekina?
I have tremendous respect for the majority whip. But if history serves me right, the majority whip was a member of parliament when this parliament banned the importation of GMO. I'm sure my sister, the distinguished senator from Wasingishu County, will be able to make those submissions. Mr. Speaker, the African Union banned the importation of GMO in this country. Is the majority whip in order to lie to the public or to deceive the public that there's nothing that has been found to be wrong. If the African Union itself, and he was a member of this House. You know, Mr. Speaker, let us be honest with each other. And I'm not saying that he cannot debate, but being a ranking member, a member of this House, he was a member of parliament when they passed to ban GMO into this country. Please, is he in order to deceive this nation?
Point of order, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order to say, the senator that I respect so much from Kakamega, and we've been together for a long time, to say that I have caused panic? To who? Is it in order to say that?
I listened to the Honorable Senator Halwale, and for purposes of Olekina's point of order, he spoke as a trained scientist. To the extent that he's making his contribution to what is normally input in what he termed as strains in developing of certain products. But Senator Halwale, you may proceed noting those orders.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what I've said is on record, the record of the Hansard. And in the fullness of time, people will refer to what we are saying here. I'm not defending anybody. I'm stating a fact of science. A fact of science. Just if you bear with me, you've had your say, let me have my way. If we were to vote, you would still have your way. Just like in 2008,
Senator Halwale, could you address the...
Yes. Just like in 2008, Mr. Speaker, sir, when the few tiny number of scientists who were in Parliament had our say, and the majority had their say, their way. There's nothing we can do about it. And I want to assure members of the public that government cannot be reckless. There is no government, Mr. Speaker. There can be no government, Mr. Speaker, that would go to the people vote for it, expect the same people to vote for it 5 years later, and embark on a process of eliminating those people. It's not possible. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg members of this House, and I have nothing against what you believe in, but believe in me.
Senator Madzayo, what is your concern again?
Yeah, you can inform me.
Are you ready for information, Halwale?
Mr. Speaker, I want to inform my brother and a very close friend of mine, the bullfighter, that in one of those sittings, Senator Orengo, James Orengo, who was here in the other session of the Senate, he stated very clearly that the laws we pass here, or the decision that we make here, if we do them because we are in power, then the same laws can come back to haunt us. And therefore, he appealed for people to have sober approach to every decision they make in the Senate. And if I can quote him, he said, this very government you are protecting so much, so jealously, comes back to eat its own at one stage. And you are eaten at some stage, I believe. Mr. Speaker, that's the information I wanted to pass. So he should not actually support a situation which he knows very well as a medical doctor, that he'll have people become infertile. You know, we'll have dysfunctionings of some areas, and you are aware of it as a medical doctor. that this GMO will cause a lot of harm to men, particularly men. They will cause a lot of harm. Young people like the Senator of Kiambu will suffer the consequences. He might not even have 6 children the way you have. He might end up with the one child that he has, and he won't get any other child. So I want to request, or I want to inform my brother that. Thank you.
Thank you for the information, but it looks like you are a poor student. The Honorable Senator Rengo was referring to a statement of literature, i.e., revolutions eat their own children. So when you want to apply facts of science, keep away from the drama of literature. Mr. Speaker, the people who are opposing this motion have a right to do so. But don't forget, you are being driven by conspiracy theories. As recently as a few months ago, this country was abound with conspiracy theories about the corona vaccine. We were told all manner of things. I have been vaccinated 4 times. My wives have been vaccinated, my children have been vaccinated, many people in Kakamega have been vaccinated. I'm yet to meet a woman who has grown a beard because she got the corona vaccine. I'm yet to meet one of my sons growing breasts for the same reason, or losing their libido, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, conspiracy cannot advance science. If we were relying on conspiracy, today we would not be ruling the skies. The jet engine is a product of science. The jet light tube, which will be the reason why the honorable members in this House will enjoy the World Cup this evening, is born out of research. I want to conclude, Mr. Speaker, by confirming that universally it is agreed that food derived from genetic engineering, current food, is not in any way more harmful than conventional food. Senator Latama has been right. He's talked about food toxicity. He has talked about allergy. 1 minute, Mr. Speaker, sir.
1 minute as you close,
just concluding,
Senator Halwale.
because of the many points of order. Thank you. He has talked about allergy, toxicity, and so on. Tell me if the allergic reactions that people have because of consuming food, including our children, which I have been seeing in my clinics for tens of years, was a result of GMO. When I first took GMO, Mr. Speaker, as a little boy, we were given yellow maize because there was shortage of food. Mr. Speaker, the same theories were there. And people are still alive. I conclude, Mr. Speaker, you'll inform me later. 1 minute. Before you inform me, I conclude by telling Kenyans that in my culture, we believe there's nothing like bad food. In my culture, we believe that food is only bad when you're not hungry. Yes, I would like Asige to inform me, if the Speaker so allows.
Go ahead, Senator Asige. You're not yet on the mic. Could you please use the mic? The mic is being brought to you, Senator.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Just a point of information to distinguished Senator for Kakamega. In terms of allergies, and he had spoken this a few minutes back about tell me of one incident in history that issues have been caused by GMO foods. I'd like to give a point of information, which is as far back as 1996, Mr. Speaker. There is a company called Pioneer High Bread that went on a GMO mission, and they decided to splice Brazilian nuts together with soybeans. And because they did so and put this food out into the market, this genetically modified food out into the market, there were consumers who suffered. There were consumers who suffered anaphylactic shock, which is an allergy, a very serious one, which can cause death, Mr. Speaker. So that's just one point of information. That is as far back as 1996. So when he says that there is no evidence out there in history, I just wanted to inform the good Senator. Asante.
Senator, kindly accept the information.
Allow me. I would like to accept your point of information. You are right. But as we say in science, little knowledge is dangerous. Eggs cause allergy. Eggs are not GMO.
Senator Halwale.
Fish causes allergy. Fish is not
Senator
GMO.
Halwale, I gave you the opportunity to accept the information.
Thank you,
Senator.
thank you, thank
Your
you.
time was up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Senator Kamar. Senator Kamar, Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I listened very keenly to the previous speaker, and I didn't get to a conclusion as to what he said, because he has mixed science, and it's not very clear. Mr. Speaker, I want to start from the history of the banning of GMOs in Kenya, because I was privileged with the Speaker, and in fact, Senator Halwale, to be in the 10th Parliament. In the 10th Parliament, when the banning took place, I'm the one who seconded the motion. I seconded the motion, Mr. Speaker, because the motion was being tabled by the Minister of Health, the Senator Beth Mugo, and I was then the Senator of Science and Technology, where the National Biosafety Authority was based. And Mr. Speaker, the reason we banned was because of unpreparedness. And my contribution is going to be around how prepared are we to receive GMOs? Are we prepared? Are we ready? Do we just import or not? Because at the time, the Senator Beth Mugo, we had a meeting with her, and we discussed, because the issue was health issues. And Mr. Speaker, we borrow this idea of banning GMOs, particularly from the EU. And what the EU at the time had done was to ban GMOs because of the fear that there was potential cause of harm to both human beings and livestock. And no researcher had given any conclusive evidence that there was no harm. So the real facts, real science was being done. And we had our own biosafety authority, which I was privileged to have under the ministry I was heading. But I did only ask them one question: are we ready? And they said no. The reason they said no is that we have very good scientists, but there was no research fund that enabled them to test these things that we are talking about. As we are talking, Mr. Speaker, 16 countries in the EU have banned GMOs. Germany, France, Latvia, the Netherlands, all those food-producing countries, Belgium included, all of them are banned. And the reason they are banned GMOs is that they have not managed in their own countries to research enough to know the safety of these foods. So the biggest question is, how ready are we as a country? How prepared are we? Are we prepared ourselves? At the time when I seconded, I gave the proposal that came from our research institutions and the Biosafety Authority in particular, that there is need to pump in some research fund so that our scientists can give us a conclusive research on whether these products are really harmful or not harmful. What we would have expected as we open up is a report from our scientists, NBA to speak. We really want the National Biosafety Authority to say something, because if they don't say anything, it is really not about causing fear, as Senator Halwale is saying. What we are saying is we all fear, and we all need to be very safe in what we consume. So there is need to increase the research fund in this country. It is good, it is very important that we allow our scientists to distinguish between the myths and the facts about this thing called genetically modified food. And what is modification, Mr. Speaker? Modification is about removing a gene and adding another one. The question, and I was waiting for Senator Halwale to say, is where is the source of this gene that was introduced to the food crops that we have. I have no problem with BT cotton in particular. I think it is very important that we distinguish what we want and what we can reject. BT cotton is very important. It is very good. The ball armyworm doesn't attack that cotton, and we can use it. Reason also, we are already wearing clothes that are from BT cotton. But then for food consumption, we need to be very sure that we are consuming food that does not have any harmful organism in there. 1 minute as I wind up, Mr. Speaker. We need to be very clear that what we consume is really good, and we must think about that. But there are two other areas that we must look at, and that is what Senator Olegina mentioned. Our export, currently, Kenya exports fresh produce to Europe, to the same 16 countries. The minute we say we have GMO, this will be stopped. So the implication is going to be bigger than we think. Lastly, the right to choose what you want to eat. Even in the US, where GMOs are consumed, when you go to the shelves, any supermarket, and we actually asked, as minister at that time, I asked our ambassador to go to the supermarket and give us evidence. And he took photos. When you are in the supermarket in the US, they label what is GMO and what is not GMO, and leave it to you to choose what you want to eat. And in fact, he said, you go to the supermarket and GMO food is full on the shelf, while the shelves where the food is organic are empty. So it means also they have a right. So finally, Mr. Speaker, it is very important that Kenyans also get to choose. So the right to choose must be in our NBA law, so that even when we introduce GMOs, we should label our food. We should be able to label and to put it in the market for anybody who wants to consume. Mr. Speaker, 5 minutes is a terrible short time, but I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kamar, for your contribution. I want to urge the honorable members to stick to the time, because the interest in this motion is heavy, and I would be happy if everyone else got the opportunity who has expressed the interest to do so. Kindly, let's keep to the 5 minutes time, and we shall thereafter from here be very strict. We will just clock on at the click of the 5 minutes. The Honorable Senator Ekenyuri Esther Anyene.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would love to contribute to this matter by saying, first, lifting the ban on GMO does not mean in any way that whoever was using GMO food will stop. Those with the luxury of engaging in GMO agriculture and planting and harvesting such kind of food will continue to do so. But as a House representative of the people, we should confront the real facts as they are. Currently, Kenya is not food secure. That's the matter we are dealing with now, which is also, when you remember what Senator Mofaya was actually raising this afternoon on the drought situation. So the truth of the matter is, Kenya as a country is not food secure. And this GMO debate we are having is about embracing innovation so that we empower our farmers to also compete with other countries. Zimbabwe and South Africa has been importing and, GMO food. But have they been confronted by the horrors we are talking about in this House? That's something these honorable members should think about. And as an upper house, I do not think we have the capacity to interrogate settled scientific issues, not unless we want to invite expert witnesses to this House. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to also remind these members that Azimio, who are largely complaining that Kenya Kwanza is not doing anything to lower the cost of unga, are the same people who are opposing initiatives being taken by the government to help ordinary people afford the locally available products. Thank you.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, Mombasa.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia hoja ya Seneta Mazayo kuhusiana na matumizi ya chakula cha GMO ama vyakula vya kisaki kwa Kiswahili sanifu, ama vyakula vya viini tete ambavyo waziri ama cabinet secretary wa mambo ya biashara alitangaza juzi kwamba itakubaliwa nchini Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningejiunga na wenzangu ambao wanapinga uamuzi huo wa waziri wa kuleta vyakula hivi kwa sasa katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Kwanza kabisa ni kwamba hatujakuwa na yes,
what's your point of order, Senator Halwale?
Mr. Speaker, ni sahihi Mheshimiwa Seneta kusema kwamba hii vyakula ya GMO iko na viini. Tafadhali kama anamaanisha chembe chembe ambazo zinaweza dhuru atueleze, lakini kutuambia viini, atuambie hiyo viini inasababisha ugonjwa gani, Mr. Speaker?
Sijasema kwamba chakula cha GMO kina viini, lakini GMO ni genetically modified foods ambao genetics kwa Kiswahili tunaita viini. Chasikia? Viini ndio genetics. Kwa hivyo hivi ni viini tete kwa sababu ni viini ambavyo havijulikani. Ni viini ambavyo havijulikani, vimeundwa kwa misingi gani ndio vikaitwa viini tete, kwa sababu ni viini ambavyo havikubaliki kisayansi. Kwa hivyo ndio inasemekana kwamba ni viini tete. Lugha nyingine ya Kiswahili kwamba vyakula vya kisaki. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba kwa sasa hatuna utaalamu hapa nchini Kenya, na nilimnukuu Profesa Kamar akisema kwamba swala hili lilikuwako mwaka 2012 nafikiri, wakati walipopiga marufuku matumizi ya vyakula hivi. Ni kwa sababu kwamba hakujakuwa na utafiti wa kisayansi wa kutosha kuthibitisha kwamba vyakula hivi vitakuwa ni salama kwa Wakenya. Na mpaka leo Mheshimiwa Spika, hatujapata utafiti huo wa kuthibitisha kwamba viini hivi ama vyakula hivi vitakuwa salama kwa Wakenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, hapa Kitui kuna wakati fulani ndugu zetu walifariki kwa kukula mahindi ambayo yalikuwa yameharibika, ambayo yalikuwa na vile virusi ambavyo mavini vinaitwa aflatoxin kwa Kiingereza. Kwa Kiswahili vinaitwa mwabila ama mwabila kwa Kiswahili, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni swala ambalo Mheshimiwa Spika ungeomba unilinde kwa sababu sitaweza kumaliza, nishawashwa taa hapa, point of order zinakuja zikija. Angeniacha nimaliza kuzungumza alafu atapewa fursa nyingine. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba
I want to intervene so that we don't just waste much time again. Yes. What's your point of order, Senator Halwale?
Mr. Speaker, rekodi ya nyumba hii lazima ionyeshe ukweli. Mheshimiwa anatuambia maana ya viini ni genetics kwa lugha ya Kimombo. Na kulingana na kamusi, na naomba ruksa yako Bwana Speaker, nisome hii nyumba maana ya viini. Kulingana na kamusi wameandika kwamba viini ama vijidudu kwa lugha ya Kimombo wakasema manake ni germs in Swahili, ama chombo chochote ambacho kinaleta magonjwa. Mr. Speaker, ni haki mheshimiwa ambaye anajigamba kwamba anatoka kule pwani kupotosha hii nyumba kwamba viini ni genetics na sisi tunajua ni vijidudu.
That is not that, Senator Faki. Could you just Marzayo? You are not on the mic.
Bwana Speaker, nafikiri itakuwa ni tabia mbaya sana if you are going to allow this, kama utaruhusu kitu kama hichi kutendeka. Kwa sababu mtu akiwa anaongea huwa na katika akili yake ameset vile anaweza kupesi. Lakini sasa ikiwa itakuwa ni uwerevu ama ni kusimama tu na kusema kwamba niko na hoja ya nidhamu alafu aanze kuongea mambo ya hivi, ni lazima ulinde yule anayeongea pale. Yule anayeongea pale ana haki ya kuongea bila he can be listened in silence. Anaweza kusikika.
That's not that.
No, ni
Honorable
makosa
members,
sana
I
kufanya
had
namna
earlier on directed that we're going to stick to the 5 minutes program because of the limitation of time to debate this motion. Senator Faki, could you kindly conclude and
Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati wangu mwingi umechukuliwa na hoja za nidhamu ambazo hazina msingi wa nidhamu yoyote. Mheshimiwa Spika, anayozungumzia ni germs ambazo ni virusi. Lakini genetics ni viini ambavyo vinaunda mwili wa binadamu ama mwili wa mnyama yoyote ambaye anahusika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba kwa sasa hatujakuwa na utaalamu katika nchi yetu ya Kenya kuthibitisha kwamba vyakula hivi ni salama kwa wananchi wetu, na kwa sababu hiyo haitakuwa sawa kwa sasa Mheshimiwa Spika ile marufuku kuondolewa, kwa sababu marufuku ikiondolewa Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wengi watapata shida ya vyakula ambavyo havijui vinatoka wapi. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona kwamba ziko nchi nyingi ambazo zinavyo vyakula hizi na ambavyo hawana mahali pa kuvipeleka ama kuviuza. Kwa hivyo hii itaharibia pakubwa wakulima wetu ambao Mheshimiwa Spika, majuzi tu walikuwa wanapewa mbolea ya bure ama mbolea ambayo imepunguzwa bei. Kwa hivyo ikiwa mazao yao yatakuja kwa wingi Mheshimiwa Spika, wale watauza mali yao wapi? Watauza wapi mazao yao? Kwa sababu wametoa, serikali hii ya Kenya Kwanza ama Kenya Kwisha imetoa fursa ya kutoa mbolea kwa bei nafuu kwa wakulima wa mahindi ili waweze kupata vyakula, waweze kuzalisha mahindi zaidi ya ile ambayo wanazalisha kwa sasa. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa tutakubali mazao kama haya ambayo yana utata, wale wananchi wetu, wale wakulima wetu Mheshimiwa Spika, watauza mahindi yao wapi? Ni kweli Mheshimiwa Spika, tuna upungufu wa mahindi, lakini tayari katika East African Community tumeweza kupata mahindi kutoka Tanzania, Malawi, Komesa, Uganda. Kwa hivyo haifai Mheshimiwa Spika kwa wakati huu kuleta vyakula kama hivi ambavyo vina utata vyenyewe kwanza, na pili hatujui madhara yake yatakuwa vipi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia ni kuwa wiki 3 zilizopita nilizungumzia zile dawa za kututumua mwili ambazo wadada wengi wanazitumia kuweza kupanua makalio Mheshimiwa Spika. Hivi vyakula vya kisaki Mheshimiwa Spika, ama hivi vyakula vya GMO Mheshimiwa Spika, vitakuwa na athari kama hiyo ambao Mheshimiwa Spika kwa sasa hatujui, na tayari kuna mkurupuko wa magonjwa ya kansa nchini mwetu. Kuna kansa za koo zimeongezeka, kuna kansa za matiti kwa kina dada Mheshimiwa Spika zimeongezeka, kuna kansa za tumbo kwa watu wengi ambazo wanaume zaidi wanapata athari kama hizo Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo kwa sasa tukiruhusu vyakula hivi Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa tuhatarisha maisha ya nchi ya Kenya. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, mwisho ni kuwa ilikuwa ni kejeli kwa Waziri Moses Kuria kusema kwamba wananchi wa Kenya tayari wanakufa, kwa hivyo waendelee kufa, hata wakifa na GMO itakuwa hakuna hasara yote Mheshimiwa Spika. Hiyo ni kuonesha kwa Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba hajali maisha ya Mkenya katika nchi yetu. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you, the Honorable Senator Faki. Senator Nyamu Karen Njeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The matter before us is of national interest. We are being called upon as leaders to find solutions